Mr. Corsi here. Now you'll have seen from the previous video in this series how tricky it is to tile with the Einstein tiles, or hats as they're called. In this video I'll demonstrate, again using the free Inkscape software, how it's possible to successfully tile hats by using a framework of Supertiles. But let's prepare the document first. So we'll get rid of that page outline by going to the document properties, and we get rid of the borders, and we make the desk colour white. And also in Inkscape Preferences menu, we make sure that the steps for the rotation's 30 degrees. Now let's import a hat tile. Now I'm going to select a tile that we made in the previous video, copy it, that's Command C, and then paste it into this document, that's Command V. Alternatively, you can click on the link that's in the description below this video and download the file to your desktop and then import it using the File menu. So this copy appears too large, so let's reduce it using the Transform tool, choosing Scale, and with the proportion box ticked, let's type 80 into the percentage box, and then keep clicking Apply until the tile seems a reasonable size. So let's now give it a green fill, and let's add a black border, 5 pixels on width. Now, making sure the tile's selected, do a Control D 3 times, that's duplicating it 3 times, and drag the copies off the original tile. Select them all and we'll flip them in a vertical axis. Let's make the fill slightly lighter green. That looks better. So these 4 green hats are going to make up our first super tile, and the 3 lighter green hats are going to fit around the darker green hat. So let's try to do that. So remember to rotate these tiles. We click them twice to get the rotation handles. Let's see if we can put this on the right hand side of the darker tile. Let's rotate it. And remember, we've set the rotation to steps of 30 degrees. So let's try to put this one on the top side of the dark green tile. And the snapping should be enabled. If your tiles are not snapping, make sure you've gone to the snapping menu to enable snapping, but not the surrounding boxes. Make sure that's disabled. So there's the 4 tiles that are going to create our first super tile. Now to do that, we'll go to the Draw Bezier Curves and Straight Lines tool, and here we click on the vertices that you can see me clicking on. Now we don't want a filling for this, so we'll go to the Fill menu and click the cross, and make sure that you've got the stroke paint. I've put it at a light grey, and its width, we'll keep it at 5 pixels. So that grey outline is a hexagon. It's an irregular hexagon, but it does have 3 axes of symmetry, and that forms our first supertile. For our second supertile, let's select this single tile, duplicate it, and drag it over to the right, click it again, and let's rotate it so that this is the way it's orientated. Now this second supertile is in the shape of an equilateral triangle, and that single tile doesn't have vertices in the correct places to produce it. Fortunately for us, the previous supertile does have vertices in the appropriate place. So let's take the Bezier tool, click on these vertices, and there's the perfect equilateral triangle that we need. So now go to the selection tool and drag that equilateral triangle and snap it as shown. And let's change that tile's colour to black. And there's our second supertile, the triangle. So we've got a hexagon and now a triangle. So for our third supertile, let's take a copy of that black tile, select it, duplicate it and drag it across. And let's take another copy of that. Well, let's first of all make it a red colour to distinguish it from the others. So we'll duplicate that to get a second copy of that, click it again, and let's rotate it and put these two together. And this supertile is in the shape of a parallelogram. The easiest way to do that is take the Bezier tool. We'll click that vertex along to that one, and then return key. That completes that. Do a separate click there, return key. So we now have two sides of that. Select tool. Let's select the long side, duplicate it and drag the copy. Make sure it clicks on the vertex on the left, snaps in. Select that other one, duplicate, and then drag that until it snaps into position. And there we have the third supertile in the shape of a parallelogram. So that's 3 down, 1 to go. Let's zoom out. Let's press the minus key a couple of times. And the fourth supertile is made up of 3 copies of the parallelogram supertile. However, let's select the parallelogram and delete that, delete key. Bezier tool again. Let's zoom in just to see what we're doing with this. And we'll click at these vertices. So we've got that parallelogram with a bit chopped off at the bottom right hand corner. Select tool and we'll change to a purple colour to distinguish it from the others. I should have chosen both shapes, but let's do them separately. We'll judge the colours are the same. So a nice purple colour. And let's select these and group them. So that's Command G. Now, you'll notice when I clicked again to get the rotation handles, you can see there's a wee cross in the middle, which is the centre around which the shape will rotate. Now let's go to the snapping menu and click Object Rotation Centres and drag that and place it on that vertex. We'll Command D to duplicate the shape and let's rotate it about that centre. Select that one and duplicate that one again. Click again to rotate it, and this time we'll rotate it in the other direction. There we have 3 copies, and we've now created the 4th Supertile, which is like a 3-bladed fan. And Command G and we group these together. So that's us with our 4 Supertiles. There's the hexagon, there's the triangle, there's the parallelogram, and there's the fan. So we're nearly at a state where we can start tiling with these Supertiles. However, the first 3, the hexagon, the triangle and the parallelogram, it's useful if we put a small arrow showing their orientation. And in the link below this video, you could download that file, import it using the Inkscape file menu, import it, and you'll get a small triangle that you can then use. And let's put that triangle on top of these 3 tiles. So let's change the colour to a light blue. And it's far too large, so hold the Control key down and reduce it in size. Rotate it first of all into that direction. And you notice it's snapping. We don't want that, it's slightly awkward. So let's go to the snapping menu and unclick the enable snapping. We're now able to move that roughly to the centre, pointing to the right edge, and duplicate it, drag it onto the small triangle. That orientation's the opposite direction as shown. Duplicate it again, and this time on the parallelogram Supertile, I'll just centre that one. So duplicate that and drag it to the parallelogram one, and we'll rotate it so that it's pointing upward. And there's the 3 orientations of these Supertiles fixed by the arrows. So now we're ready to go ahead and attempt to tile with these Supertiles. So I'm going to start with a hexagon. Let's select it, but we'll notice the whole of the hexagon is not selected. That's because we've not grouped it. So select them all, Command G group, select all of that, Command G group, select all of that, Command G group. That one is grouped. So we'll now have that tile as a group. Now make sure that snapping's enabled but not bounding boxes. So let's select the hexagon, duplicate that. We need an identical one, so duplicate again, and this time snap it like so. Another one, duplicate. This time the orientation should be with the arrow facing downward, so click again and rotate. That should then fit in nicely. Might take a bit of manoeuvring to get it snapping correctly. And you'll notice that the triangle now appears. Let's duplicate one of these and rotate it so that it fits in the centre. Again, it'll, well, we were lucky it snapped straight away. Look at the arrows. They're both pointing to the middle, and there's one pointing to the outside. We're going to use the parallelogram for that, and we'll orientate it so that the arrow is pointing outwards, and that should fit eventually there. Another one there pointing inwards, Duplicate that, rotate it, so that's pointing inwards. See how useful these arrow directions are. Now I'm having difficulty with the snapping. I'm getting line midpoints appearing, so I think I should go to the snapping menu, go to the advanced mode and uncheck line midpoints. Line midpoints should be unchecked, and we'll see how that works. There we go, that's fitted. And doing the arrows again, there's you can see the symmetry in this, but pointing inwards so that the arrows are flowing in this similar direction. Now the fan fits. Another one, duplicate that. And the third one, duplicate again. Third one fits at that edge. So at this stage it's worth looking at the flow of the arrows. Take the green area. There's 2 arrows in through the parallelograms and 1 arrow out via a parallelogram. So this is where things get rather interesting and slightly more complicated. I'm going to use that large patch that I've developed as a template. So I'm going to select it all, duplicate and drag it down. Now that's the first patch. I'm hoping to put a second patch down to the right hand side, but this fan shape is not needed as a repeat. So if I select all that, hold the Shift key, deselect that, duplicate, then group. And I can drag that patch down and it fits nicely in there. Hopefully a third copy will go up the top, but the orientation of it needs to be different. We'll need to reorientate this, so let's click it again and rotate it so that the central arrow is pointing southwest. Now, if this patch is going up there, we don't want these 2 fans to repeat. So let's select this, hold the Shift key down, deselect, deselect, duplicate, then group. That's Command G for grouping. And we'll take that patch and it should neatly fit into place. And there we are. And you'll see what appears in the middle. It's one of the Hexagon Supertiles. So let's take a copy of that. And it needs rotated so that it's pointing southeast. Let's try and put that in. I'll zoom in a bit. That's it. Let's zoom back out. And there we have a much larger patch. So things are getting rather exciting, and you should really focus on the flow of the arrows through this and look at the green areas, see how the arrows, 2 arrows in, 1 arrow out. That pattern seems to be persistent throughout this extended tiling. Now what's fascinating in the process we've just done is how the small patterns have scaled up to larger patterns, and if we impose a larger scale pattern of hexagons and triangles on top of this, you'll see what I mean. But as it scales up, there are differences. They're not perfect scaled copies of the smaller patterns. So that's Mr. Carsey signing out, and I hope you've enjoyed the video.